it's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When two of boxing's most polarizing figures, YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul and pound-for-pound star Gervonta Tank Davis, finally prepare to square off, legends of the sport are already weighing in. Davis brings his trademark knockout power, blazing speed, and experience against world-class opposition, while Paul steps in with size, reach, and the spotlight of massive public expectations. Many veterans predict Davis will showcase his usual dominance through precision and slick movement, but some believe Paul's physical advantages and history of defying the odds could turn this into the year's biggest shocker.
Fair play, fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, 92 pound weight difference. Almost 100 pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. Still, 65 pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
The highly anticipated clash has a new home. Instead of Atlanta, Jake Paul will now face Gervonta Tank Davis on November 14th at the Kaseya Center in Miami. MVP Promotions announced the change on social media, writing, "The war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis is taking over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city." The bout will stream globally on Netflix. While officially billed as an exhibition, the matchup is already sparking heated debate due to the dramatic size gap between the fighters. Paul weighed in at about 199.4 pounds in his last outing at cruiserweight, while Davis has been competing around 135 pounds in recent bouts. Because of this disparity, Davis' WBA lightweight title will not be on the line. For fans, the question remains whether this will be a genuine contest or just another high-profile spectacle.
Fans are losing their mind over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why did Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphics. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 4 wing. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
Although the exact terms of the fight remain unclear, no official contract weight, round limit, or confirmation on whether standard professional rules will apply has been released. This uncertainty has fueled debate, with many observers framing the matchup more as a crossover spectacle than a legitimate boxing contest. Questions of fairness, safety, and the credibility of the sport's weight class system now dominate discussions, as fans and analysts wonder whether the event will be remembered as a true fight, or simply another made-for-entertainment showcase.
He's not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. The Paul brothers, when they come over to box, their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pounds. Tank has one job, but it doesn't make any difference. Boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen, there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. It's some big guy to warn you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. It has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terence Crawford has voiced skepticism about the upcoming Paul versus Davis matchup, pointing to the glaring size mismatch as the main issue. To him, the event feels more like a spectacle than a legitimate contest, something closer to a sparring session dressed up as a fight. While Crawford acknowledges Davis' elite skill set, explosive power, and proven credentials, he notes that Jake Paul's much larger frame could change the dynamic if Paul manages to land cleanly. Still, Crawford doubts the bout will follow typical professional standards and stresses that the weight disparity undermines any notion of it being a fair fight between equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson, still undefeated and highly respected, views the Paul versus Davis matchup as an unfair test, particularly for Davis, given Paul's much larger size. Even so, Stevenson is confident that Davis' experience, technical skill, and ring IQ would allow him to control the fight with ease. He expects Davis to lean on movement, precision, and fundamentals rather than attempting to overpower Paul. In Stevenson's eyes, Paul lacks the refinement to cope with Davis' speed and intelligence, making a decision victory for Davis far more likely than a knockout. While he criticizes the spectacle element and sees the bout as disrespectful to boxing's competitive spirit, Stevenson remains convinced that Davis' pure boxing ability places him on a level far beyond Paul.
When you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and saying he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the women between Jake Paul?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on him. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, I'm proof. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier offers a more balanced perspective on the Paul versus Davis showdown. He gives Jake Paul credit for stepping up against a fighter of Davis' caliber, acknowledging both the risk and potential reward. At the same time, he points out the clear mismatch created by the weight difference, stressing that it's hard to view the fight as fair within conventional boxing terms. Cormier highlights Davis's superior skill, experience, and pedigree, which place him far ahead as a boxer, meaning Paul is taking a significant gamble. He also considers the reputational stakes. A loss for Paul could damage his credibility, while for Davis, being beaten by a much larger opponent could leave a lasting mark on his legacy. Though Cormier stops short of making a bold prediction, he leans toward Davis on pure boxing ability, while admitting Paul's size advantage keeps the fight unpredictable.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt. I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.
Teofimo Lopez characterizes the Paul vs. Davis matchup less as a clash for titles or legacy and more as a spectacle fueled by profit and mainstream appeal. He stresses that there's no shame in that, since both fighters will secure massive paydays and the event is guaranteed to capture widespread attention. While the bout may lack the prestige of a true championship fight, Lopez argues it still holds value for the sport. By pulling in non-traditional audiences and generating buzz, even an exhibition-style contest can benefit boxing, spotlighting it for new fans, broadening its reach, and showcasing how big the sport can become when personalities, drama, and showmanship take center stage.
I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know.
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. Heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this gonna work?
Hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction? A show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, that's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
Competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like Big Show, The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
Yeah. And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to critique them.